Read something from my book called Swede Among the Rednecks, and it's essentially a book that collects essays. It says short story in the program, but if we'd had essays, it being 1 o'clock, nobody would have stuck around, and essays, surely nobody would have stuck around. But I'm a contributor to a newspaper, which helps me because I have to crank out 2 columns every month. And truth be known, though, I really enjoy writing those. And they have to do with family. So the first one is called The Great American Lawn Mowing. And I think I would like to let you know that most of us, when we're children or teenagers or even adults, we don't really necessarily always enjoy doing chores. And I recall, and I'm sure this was my only family, it only happened in my family, when we would say as children to our parents, "You only had us so we could be your servants," and you probably have heard and done these things. So this is called The Great American Lawn Mowing. When I was growing up, during formative years that seemed very long and agonizing, my father tried to teach my brother and me, quote, "the value of $1. A major memorable way in which he practiced this slow step towards illustrating the American dream, as if we were puppets of this demonstration, was to have us mow the lawn." I'm here not concerned with my brother's experience because somehow, due to maternal intervention, it was quickly determined he had allergies and was thus exempt from walking back and forth behind a lawnmower in 100+ degree Texas heat, which meant that as a teenager, fit from repeated bouts of this hard labor, I was soon able to finish mowing the lawn in 2.5 hours. At the time, I did not understand the value of earning $1, on which my father appeared so fixated, nor why I had to suffer at the work ethic hands of a father who apparently thought I would never know what it was like to grow up as a child in post-World War II Germany. Somehow he connected my twice-a-week lawn mowing sessions with his tough past, while ceding to my Swedish mother, meaning my brother got out of it. In Dallas, a well-fertilized and sprinkled lawn required uber-frequent mowings, which would have suited my father just fine. He did not want his eldest son to turn out to be one of those kids going to a fancy pants school where my only sweat might come from yielding a lacrosse stick and pain in my ankle emanate from twisting it on a tennis court. Instead, dazed from the heat and extended sessions of labor, I had to walk into metal sprinkler heads, they were metal back then, and stumble. And if I was not paying attention and nicked them, I was made well aware, even back then, that one head cost $25, and other injurious parts were included in this transaction. The value of $1 must be multiplied many times to reach the full amount of $25. As I walked behind the self-propelled mower, which my father proudly proclaimed was self-propelled to anyone who would listen, as if this feature was an incredible luxury and feat of technology, I did not understand why the neighbors truly practiced trickle-down economics and had adults come to take care of the lawns so their children could lounge inside air conditioning or on the hot deck of a pool, while fathers worked in their home studies with framed photographs of Ronald Reagan winking at them. And my trickle down was all across my bare back, itching from the inevitable interaction with the grass that had to be emptied into black trash bags that would burst from the heat as they were packed perfectly close to the lawn without touching it and leaving the driveway clear for a fancy automobile. The American dream was rolling around. Yes, whether or not teenagers are scripted to do the labor of lawn mowing, they will bite the hand that feeds them. The question now, after many years of enjoying mowing my own lawn, before beginning to practice trickle-down economics and having it treated like a mistress, styled, blown, and fertilized to consummate perfection with a jewel-worthy huge carbon footprint to top the trophy possession, is if my laborious encounters with the lawn and lessons of the value of $1 made me a better American and contributor to society? Did being called out from my room when I was reading benefit anyone other than my father and his motions or notions of what it takes to raise a son who would make him as proud as the American flag and Republican Party? I think of Walt Whitman now and his obsession with grass and his famous lines from, what else? Leaves of Grass, a state of mind I am certain my father did not intend. And it is too easy to pluck, quote, resist much, obey little, or my favorites, if you want me again, look for me under your boot soles, as a reminder that A, I fought mowing for money all the way, and B, my father is now dead and cannot see how I turned out as an adult walking through life. That's often on carpet or flooring. Should we put Fancy Pants Trevor out there in the heat with a lawnmower and let him have his long walks to mull things over this growing season of 2016? Will it make a difference? If so, what kind of difference? It doesn't matter, just put him out there. Unless, of course, he has asthma and you're not willing to pay for the pharmaceutical treatments, more expensive than the trickle-down lawn care, just to prove what point. All right, and I'm sure my father would enjoy it if he were here to hear it. Here's another thing. Many of you probably have been on those wonderful family vacations. And we all know that we're all so functional and we all just have a great time and we come back and just totally energized and wish we could spend weeks and weeks together in a car. And this essay is called Broadening Horizons. With the exception of a few grouchy people, the ones we half playfully say should crawl back under the rock where they came from, or into their poorly insulated summer cabin, most will answer yes, from experience or didactic echo. Travel does broaden the mind. I can hear also my Swedish parents say this, and while I once only half understood what they meant, taken out of my Lego world, I can report that they made sure my brother and I got to experience firsthand a foreign culture, America. Back when we traveled to America, it was considered very extravagant and also somewhat nutty to cross the vast ocean from Sweden by airplane and spend several weeks in a land most people only knew as larger than life, and not necessarily in a positive way, from what they had heard or imagined from popular media. And back then, popular media meant a newspaper made of paper, a magazine, and some coverage from one television station broadcasting a few hours a day. And as we lose our place, we find again that it was supplemented by a transistor with radio broadcasts. Believe it or not, I'm talking about 1970, months after Americans had landed on the moon. Our parents succeeded in broadening our minds when the family spent 2 summers exploring America. And explore we did, spending endless hours in a rental car going from coast to coast, but especially spending time in the, quote, West, compliments of my father's great interest in the Old West and cowboy movies. Yes, High Chaparral, The Virginian, and the occasional John Wayne movie were ours for the taking in Sweden, and my father was taken indeed. I'm not sure my mind was broadened the way my parents had intended. However, I recall that we reached the Grand Canyon, something which was supposed to be famous. Just before we were to get out and marvel at the wonder, the front of my father's pants somehow split. He was very embarrassed by this fact, and it did not make it any easier that my brother and I, truth be known, my mother, thought this was a hilarious occasion. So all I remember from this wonder of the world is my father grabbing the cowboy hats he had bought and holding it in front of his pants, making his way to the railing of the Grand Canyon in a snaking way, or as if he had injured himself walking. As a side note, this was before the term sciatica had become all the rage, and every adult was afflicted by its flare-ups, and some of you know. Tombstone, Arizona, it was supposed to be very interesting. We were in a sandy graveyard, and it was capital letters hot in the middle of the summer for a Swedish boy. I recall only ducking into the gift shop where my mind was broadened to celebrate air conditioning, my favorite discovery on my entire trip through America. Add to that Sprite, which came ice cold and went down my throat in a way no amount of expert advertising could have conditioned me to swallow. Another image from that gift store and visit to Tombstone, Arizona. My mother, equally exhausted from the heat, looking as if she was hanging onto the postcard racks like a life preserver, while my father continued his visions of gunfighters out in the graveyard. What else did I discover? Wrigley's Juicy Fruit. I like the yellow wrappered gum best. I suppose our parents were giving us gum so we could entertain ourselves during the thousands of miles we traveled by car both summers. That's another thing I remember. My father bragging to others about the mileage he put on the rental car. I don't remember the exact number. It did not register, like so much else that was supposed to have during the mind-broadening travel trip to America. I discovered during our journey my love for motel swimming pools. After sitting in the car all day accumulating miles, what a gift it was to be set free in the pool and dive and swim and dive and swim. I also loved the kids eat free buffets, though I recall I was such a good eater that my very honest and straight-laced father was embarrassed and thought it was not right for me to eat free, so he paid for a full adults buffet. Another learning experience from the summer, too, in America. We were in a place called Bryce Canyon, and we were going to get to ride real live animals. They were mules. I remember finding it interesting that these animals were a combination of horse and donkey. I found the way their ears looked different from those of a horse to be a discovery. I also heard the head wrangler of mules and tourists tell those who were afraid and said they had never ridden before, "Well, then we'll give you all a horse that's never been ridden before." My father and others thought that was very funny. Years later, I thought how corny this joke was and how often the poor wrangler must have said it to tourists. These are only a few but the major memories of several weeks worth of traveling in the U.S. when I was a boy from Sweden, swept across the ocean in an airplane by well-meaning parents. Did travel broaden my mind? It did, as I discovered some things about human behavior, all of it ancillary to what people might say when they utter the words, "travel broadens the mind," or "travel is good for the person." I'm not sure I learned what my parents intended me for to learn, or did I? And I'm going to read one more since I realize time is running out quickly. This is about my extended family, my students, and this is called Summer School in the Garden. This morning I caught the beginning of the end of the white petals raining on the lawn, the crepe myrtle trees that have brought shade and such beauty, peace as I have stolen moments outside on the back porch. I viewed them like an outsider, as if I did not belong there, as I raised my iPhone to photograph them, as if I could capture exact beauty. This is how I have taken breaks teaching American literature online this A-term, getting up to stretch and venturing into our backyard, a garden more beautiful than I'm deserving as a mere mortal navigating whether Emily killed Homer Barron in A Rose for Emily, or if Theodore Roethke identified with cuttings or pulling weeds. Those are, of course, examples that have to do with nature, including human nature. But most of the works we've read have been dark, devoid of nature's beauty, to soften the blows of characters not achieving the American dream in Sherwood Anderson's tales, in which people practically bury themselves alive, or in Toni Morrison's recitative, where they get swept up in disliking, quote, the other side. I have discovered this summer what a hibiscus looks like. I have seen the developmental phases of agapanthus, and as I have come to know them all, with apologies to paraphrasing from the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock just now. I have taken photographs with ease using my iPhone. Oh, the butterflies I can show you from my leaning into the Buddleia, also known as butterfly bush. I do not know the name of the winged crusader, but if you look at the beautiful blue parts of his black wings, I am sure you can identify him. Bumblebees, or bees rather, have been my companions when blary-eyed from the computer screen on which I have just read that Harry, in Hemingway's Snows of Kilimanjaro, is not nice to his wife, and that the hyena in the story is symbolic of death. The green hummingbird I have seen has been a welcome antidote to an electronic stack of students dutifully chronicling abysmal behavior of characters inhabiting a thick anthology. Watering has been one of my favorite breaks, moving a sprinkler attached to the garden hose, an excuse to explore other corners of our backyard I do not see during the regular academic year. Asked by my wife to please water the hydrangea, I managed to identify that they were the beautiful light blue blooms that to me look very much like the flowers of crepe myrtles off the fence near our neighbors to the right side of the house. No, I did not have any thoughts about good fences make good neighbors when I turned on the water. That has been part of the beauty of teaching English online this summer with the garden just outside. It clears and cleans the mind and head quickly, so that when I go inside, I am new to the students' work. What a difference when walking down the gray carpets against institutional cream-colored walls to explore the alphabetic choices of the snack machine and see the wish pushed for is a match. Here in my wife's garden proper, I see the cherry tomatoes, peppers, smell mint, even recognized by sight that the small orange flowers planted next to this garden are a natural way to keep pests from attacking what grows on the vine. I return inside, try to remember to sit up straight, place my fingers on the keyboard, neck straight, and continue to type the thoughts of summer school. Thank you.